Okay, good morning. My name is McKellen, and this is a short presentation to accompany my final project submission for the MA in Professional Practice. To give you a bit of background, I tend to work in toured live sound, and so, as such, whenever coming up with research proposals, this experience tends to influence my lines of thinking. One of the things I've noticed in the last few years is that there has been an increased exploitation of live events and live music as a revenue stream in the industry, as opposed to them being reliant formerly on recorded sound and album sales. This can be seen in the increase in audience sizes and rising ticket prices. I also thought that a logical extension of this process would be for the industry to begin monetizing remote attendance at gigs. In other words, people who cannot physically attend being charged a small amount of money to be part of the experience. I thought that the technology that would likely be used to achieve this would be live streaming over internet with an audio and visual component. I also thought it might be interesting to try and include binaural audio, as this gives a particularly specific three-dimensional experience, as if the listener were there. In order to achieve this, I carried out a literature review, which included academic papers, online articles, and up-to-date magazine entries, so as I could see what was going on at the present time in the current trade. I also carried out 12 industry personnel interviews, both before and in some cases after the research, to gain insight into what is current practice and what the technology, equipment currently used, and what demand and supply is like in the current market. I also carried out 3 case studies with companies that are currently offering a streaming service in Scotland to get an idea at the cutting edge of what is currently done and what is currently expected. I also, after the research, carried out a selection of feedback surveys so as I could provide quantitative evidence of the success or failure of individual points of the research project. The first case study I did was Sanctus Media. This was a company that I was working with for the Edinburgh University summer graduations. They only offered a streaming service on that occasion. They charged £500 per day plus VAT, used a Blackmagic Ultra Studio, and instead of using a fibre connection or satellite, they used a series of 4G and 3G mobile dongles. This was, generally speaking, very effective as there was no fibre connection in the venue. However, it did, at one point, there was a multi-network failure for about 20 minutes, which meant they had to go onto their 3G backup. And although the transmission continued, the resolution did drop for the viewer. So that was an important lesson, and wherever possible, try and use a land-based connection. Second case study was Blue Star Streaming, who tend to operate for large sporting fixtures and outdoor live music events, which is one of the reasons why they charge significantly more, at £1,660 per day plus VAT. They used a Blackmagic 4K, which is a high definition encoder, and they also used bespoke encoders, players, and web hosting, which is one of the services they offered. The third company I looked into was Precise Events, who are an audiovisual company that tend to do live sound and video for corporate functions and the like. The streaming service that they offered, they charged between £700 and £1,200 per day. They used a Blackmagic 4K as well, and interestingly they used a free piece of software called Livestream Producer in order to encode. Whenever I asked them about their share of the market and, the sort of the trade that could be hoped for in streaming, interestingly they said, generally speaking, they were not sought out to offer streaming as a service, but it was rather whenever they were already doing sound and video for an event, a service that they offered and that people chose to take up at that point. In order to gain more insight, I also did practical research. So the first of these was a concert with the Scottish National Jazz Orchestra in Edinburgh. In order to find out what would be required to mount multiple camera angles for a potential live stream, I contracted a visual media team to come in, a team of 3 with their own equipment of cameras and connections for that, so as we could record it with a view to making a DVD of the performance. So out of that, then I learnt what cameras might be required to achieve multiple camera angles, how much it would cost to hire them, and also how much it would cost to hire the operators to go alongside. Second piece of practical research was, as I described, with Sanctus Media at the Edinburgh University graduations, where they offered a streaming-only service. I provided the audio, and another company provided the video, and they took both of these feeds and encoded them and streamed them over the internet. When it came to practical research, there was two key project events. The first of these was the conference for the International Society for Music Education, where I was the technical manager. I took this opportunity, I spoke to several of the bands that I was doing the sound for, and took this opportunity to ask if I could do an experimental live stream whenever their permission was gained. I did so. This was a success. I managed to get a successful live stream in good definition with binaural audio. However, I did think that the output, the final results, were not really quite to the standard I was going for. This was because of the video interface. There were limits in its resolution that it could provide. It couldn't provide full HD, and the aspect wasn't quite right. So I decided that although technically a success, I would need to upgrade the AV interface and to achieve better results in full high definition. The second project event was the Scottish National Jazz Orchestra as part of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Again, I set it up in the Queen's Hall and used mobile dongles in order to achieve a connection as well as a landline source by experiment. I was able to achieve a high definition stream, including elements of binaural audio and direct sound from the mixer, and alternating between the two, just so as I could determine later on what was the best result. Ultimately, this was a complete success. I got the level of resolution I was looking for, as well as being able to broadcast live sound, and there was no drop in the stream. So overall, my research questions and findings centered on 5 general topics. One was streamed media and binaural audio. One was if it could be done with multiple camera feeds. One was how much it would cost and would it be commercially viable. Then, could I achieve it with sufficient bandwidth and quality for as many viewers as desired to experience it. And then finally, could the event be recorded and then hosted so as it could be viewed after the event. On the first topic, in terms of the streamed media and binaural audio, I would say that this is a success. I achieved both of these things. I learnt the equipment required and obtained it. However, interestingly, whenever I then had the feedback from people that were experiencing the results, the binaural audio element proved the least popular of the audio options, with only 25% of people selecting it. By a decent margin, I in fact found that a blend of binaural and direct sound was the option that people went for, which, after speaking to some more people in the industry, there was the mooted conversational point that perhaps this was due to what people are used to, what people expect from streaming services such as BBC iPlayer, where you get largely a direct sound, and that may be what they're used to and what therefore they're expecting. In terms of multiple camera feeds, again, this was very achievable. It merely required a vision mixer, such as the one demonstrated here, and then connections probably via SDI or HDMI over Ethernet for distance. So, again, easily achievable, a success. In terms of cost and viability, I discovered that in general, people, certainly at the level of quality that I was managing to output, were not largely willing to pay for the service. They instead opted to agree to view a short advert if required. However, some people did agree to pay 33% in total, and these were in the range of £1 to £3 and £4 to £7 for access to the whole stream. In terms of bandwidth and quality, the option that I went for was YouTube, whose hosting platform offered me all the advantages I was looking for at no cost. However, if a client were to wish to not use YouTube, then payable services such as Amazon CloudFront and Streaming Video Provider are both easily available for a small fee. Likewise, in terms of the event recording and the hosting, I found that YouTube offered that as a natural matter of course. However, again, if you were to wish to do this, particularly without branding, then that can be done through Amazon or Streaming Video Provider. So in terms of conclusions on the specific areas of research, I found that the live streaming was achievable, and I managed it in the definition that I was looking for, so that was a success. In order to offer multiple camera angles, again, I know what would be required and how much it would cost. So if the job, if the client decided to wish to do that, I could achieve it at a framework that I now know how to do. In terms of event recording and hosting, all the events that I have streamed are hosted within my YouTube channel, and can be, if I wish to make them public, available to others to see. In terms of the cost and commercial viability, I did find that the limited willingness to pay would be something of an impediment, and from discussions with industry expertise, the suggestions were that perhaps more camera angles and better quality cameras would probably be the route to do that. In terms of the binaural audio, as discussed, this element was successfully delivered, but ultimately it was discovered that it was not the preferred option whenever people were asked what they like to listen to. So, in an evaluation of the project, I would say that it was, generally speaking, a success. I managed to achieve all the goals that I set out to and answer the questions that I specifically set. I would also say that during the process, I learnt an entire set of new skills and gained access to new equipment, which hopefully will allow me now to offer live streaming from events as a chargeable service in my area, which I think is of tremendous benefit in the expansion of toolkit and competency. One thing that I would suggest if this process were to be continued would be that I would probably need to upgrade the video equipment involved, either via a hire for specific jobs, quite likely, or possibly buying a newer, higher definition camera to carry out the service. So all in all, then I feel I can offer this as a payable service for clients, and what I would do at the next stage would be to offer this, but also provide a sort of value for money survey at the end of it, so as people could come back and say if they thought they were paying too much, too little, and what could possibly be done to improve the service going forward. So, I would say from my research that the industry itself, including Live Nation, are quite interested in live streaming. I think it is very much the way that people are going to go. They're going to try and monetize it further. Services such as LiveList are already attempted to do that. They're in a free model just now, but I suspect they will be going to a pay model, much like Spotify did. And then services like BBC iPlayer are already providing it. So people are going to come to expect it as an option that they can go for. So I would suggest that my being able to carry out such a service is going to be of benefit in the future. Thank you very much for listening.